Hello. Today in our class in interpersonal conflict or conflict and mediation, let's talk about power from chapter 4 of our textbook. Power, the structure of conflict. I just like this picture of Darth Vader and Luke, and that line always comes back to me. Luke, you don't know the power of the dark side. We'll touch on that a little bit as we get into this, because I think there is a dark side of power that the chapter briefly mentions toward the end, but I want to say a little bit more about it. Okay, overall, the aim of this chapter is that we learn to rebalance power. If there's not a rebalancing, constructive conflict can't take place. I like the picture of the dog and the cat working together here. I'm sure the dog can get up and get a drink on his own, but the dog lets the cat work with him to solve the problem. Many conflicts are more about problems, solving problems. We just have different ways to go about them, and there may be relational issues underneath that drive those differences. But if we can, using that conflict definition from chapter 1, really get at the heart of what it is the conflict is about, and then recognize that we have different power levels between parties in the conflict, yet still somehow work together, we have a chance to be more constructive with things and solve these problems, get past the relational issues or resolve those. Okay, the book talks about 3 clusters of power throughout the chapter. I think these are helpful to recognize. Designated power is power that's just given to you. You're promoted. You're the boss now. Your responsibilities are different, and those include areas of responsibility over other employees that are very powerful to them. You can fire people if you need to. You can promote people. You can control the hours that they work. All these things are power in a sense, but it's designated to you. It can be given to you and it can be taken away from you. Distributive power is when we recognize or feel that power is either or. You have it or I have it. Either you get the promotion or I get the promotion. 2 employees within a company will grapple for power using various power currencies, feeling that if one person has it, the other doesn't. Integrative power is the opposite view, that we have more power together if we work together on things. Again, why I like the dog and the cat here. Integrative, we are integrating our efforts. Distributive means power is distributed. Somebody has it and some doesn't. Designated, then it's by design has been given to you. So what we're looking for throughout this chapter is to move towards integrative power in your conflict situations that you have. How do you feel about power? The chapter goes through a couple pages here of just general ideas about this. Number 1 is we need power. We want power. As people, we want to be more powerful, meaning we can do the things we want to do, that we can resolve our own problems, and we want this. At the same time, sometimes we don't like power, don't like to admit it exists. Nobody escapes its effects, especially in a work situation, but even in a family situation. And just last night I watched a TV show about an over-controlling father that had favored one son over another son, and just all the trouble that it caused within that family. We have that at home, we have it at work, definitely, with the effects of power. And you've worked for a boss probably where power has gone to their head and they don't use their power effectively, properly. But we're all in effect by this. Even within the classroom, I have the power to give you an A or a B or a C as I look at your papers. And your recourse when I am treating people unfairly they're limited and often difficult to address a professor who is abusing their power. We come to sociopaths, and this is where I see that dark side of power coming into play. The sociopath is the person who does not have empathy for others, doesn't feel what other people feel, and they can hurt others, and it just doesn't bother them. They go on their way taking what they want to take. And we're are we surrounded by sociopaths? No. 1 in 10, 1 in 100, I don't know. But the thing is, sociopathic people with that disorder, and they call it a disorder, antisocial personality disorder, sociopaths, psychopaths. They can turn criminal and violent, but those are the rare types. What we really encounter most are people at work, people we work with, people we live with that just don't feel what you feel. Personally, I think sociopathy is a possibility in anybody, and it just depends on how you mature. And if you encourage that sociopathy and recognize that if I steal, I gain, you lose, and I could care less that you lose. I gain, I'm rewarded by it. Sociopaths are often rewarded by encouraging those lack of feelings within themselves. And often they get away with a lot. The sociopaths, I'll put up a video for you to watch about this. I think that's very instructive. We won't use the video in any grading of anything, but I want you to understand this concept of sociopathic people out there. You will work with them, and they will abuse their power. They'll use it every bit they've got. They will exaggerate it, stretch it out, and they will do things that are gain for them that hurt other people and doesn't bother them at all. And you will be working with these people. They often rise to positions of power in organizations because they will lie and cheat to get there. And we're not talking about the criminal type unless they're actually stealing from an employer or breaking laws that are put in place to keep business running smoothly and keep people trusting one another, and they will break these laws. So be aware of these people, and this is the dark side of power, and it has to do with breaking the rules. We're all supposed to follow the rules in society and in business, right? Well, when you break them, you can gain great advantage, just like the thief does. Okay, power denial. People they dislike power. They dislike that it's there. They feel power is negative, that nobody ought to have power. Let's just downplay it. We don't need to talk about these power differences. We feel guilty for having it. We deny that it's even there. We deny it through our communication. There's a section in the chapter that talks about the kinds of things people say when they're denying that power exists. This is instructive. And communication changes around people with power, especially around the boss. You've been there. Employees just don't say things around the boss that they say when the boss isn't there. I got a promotion I worked at an Intel plant out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was promoted up to supervisor on a construction crew. And I remember walking into the break area at lunchtime one day with a friend of mine to sit down to eat, and conversation immediately stopped. And I realized these guys just don't want to talk about what they've been talking about with me in the break area. And I ate my lunch, and I never went back and had lunch there. You get the message. We'll talk about meta messages a little bit later. Okay, the book has a relational theory of power. It's almost mathematical, so if you memorize this formula here, you'll have it all figured out. I'm just kidding there. It's really rather simple. The power that she has over me is equal to how much I need her. The power you have over somebody equals how much they depend on you. It's all based on interdependency, interpersonal relationships here. I think this is a decent formula. Is it equal? I don't know. We assign formulas like this to these realms of human activity, and it's very difficult, but it helps to if you're somebody that sees things in an abstract mathematical way, it helps to see this. But consider this, the power my boss has over me is equal to how much I need the job or need the boss. That makes sense? But let's turn that around. The power I have over the boss is equal to how much the boss needs me. It works both ways. That's the interesting part of this formula. And I recall a time when I was driving a service truck in Phoenix, Arizona, and I normally drove all over town doing service calls. And when the service calls were kind of thin, the boss would send me to a construction site to just fill in for the day or work for 1 or 2 days until we had more calls. And I was working at this one job site, and the person who was running the job site wasn't there. I was the only one, and I didn't have the materials I needed to do the job, and it was very frustrating because I couldn't complete anything. I could have killed the day there, piddling around with stuff and doing what I could, but it would have been very unproductive. I was upset and angry at my job that I wasn't getting enough hours, and they managed to send me out to work half a day at this place. And so I did what I could, and I decided to go home like I usually did when I ran out of service calls each day. I was only getting about 20 hours a week. So I went home thinking I'm saving the boss money by not being here, taking a paycheck for work that I'm really not doing because I can't be productive. Well, I got a call from the boss, and it didn't help that I'd gone over to my girlfriend's house, that just looked bad. I got a call from the boss, and he was mad. He was furious. I could hear it in his voice. He just would stop, and I need to talk to you tomorrow morning. Hung up the phone. So I went in early in the morning. He had calmed down. I liked working for him. He had calmed down, and we sat down, and he explained to me that he got a call from the client who said, "What happened to the guy you sent out? He disappeared." And the client was very upset, and I didn't quite understand how important it is sometimes to look like your company is doing a good job to a client. And in that case, I probably did the right thing for the bottom line of the company in terms of not wasting hours, but I did the wrong thing because it was very important to show that client that we cared about them and we had somebody on the job, even though it was frustrating to be there and not be able to work efficiently. So he chewed me out a little bit, but he didn't fire me. I thought I was going to get fired. He needed me. I was good at what I did, and he didn't have many good service truck drivers. And so he needed me, and he exercised his power, but he could have fired me and he didn't. So this dependency goes both ways. Recognize that. And I think that's an important point. We think, I think we'll come to this later, but we think that they have all the power and we have nothing, and it's never that way. Okay, this is my favorite section of the chapter about power currencies. They have a nice little acronym for you, RICE, R-I-C-E. Resource control, interpersonal linkages, which can lead to coalitions, communication skills, oral or written, or just conversation with people, and your expertise. Think of these as money, in a way, currencies. I love the metaphor. It's not always that the person that has access to the checkbook or who can make decisions. See, there's interdependence going on here. There's relationship, and we've got to recognize that. Somebody has resource control, but other people have interpersonal linkages. Other people have the communication skills, and some people have the expertise. And it will vary on context where you're at, whether you're at work or at home or a new job or an organization you volunteer for or the Cub Scouts you help out with. These currencies change depending on where you're at, and you probably have more than you know. I kind of like to call these your superpowers, and a lot of times you have to discover them and learn how to use them. And this is a learning process. I can talk about it in the lecture here for a few minutes. You can read the book and really eat this up, but it's going to take you a number of weeks or months in conflict situations to realize I really do have power currencies, and they're important. I like this picture here. That's a scene from the movie The Shawshank Redemption. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It's just great entertainment. And Morgan Freeman is sitting there. He's in a high power position. The director placed him. And I can't remember the other actor there sitting in front of him. And Morgan Freeman can get you anything you want in prison. They're in a prison. He can get you what you need. He knows people. He has linkages. He has resources. He's got control over them. And everything's traded in cigarettes. And if this guy gets his cigarette allotment but he doesn't smoke, he can trade them for other things. And so Morgan Freeman has power even within this prison system that you wouldn't think somebody could have. All right, these power currencies are also interesting in the idea that I think they're all worth about the same. I don't think you could say resource control is more important than communication skills. or interpersonal linkages or expertise. And I was tempted as I was building the slide to put a $100 bill, a $50 bill, a 20 and a 10. And I thought very quickly, that's not how it is. They're all really about equal. Maybe they shift a little bit in terms of situation or context. Resource control would be control over supplies, like Morgan Freeman could get you what you want in the prison. The requisition officer in the military down at the warehouse can get you all kinds of things. Black market for the military or whatever, and has control over the resources. That's a powerful person, a comptroller, somebody like that in an organization who can get you the tools you need, materials you need, powerful person. When I used to be in construction management, I found out very quickly, if I can get the parts we need to get our jobs done efficiently, if I can order them far enough in advance and see things coming, and then hide our materials inside of our toolboxes so other crews from the company don't sneak over and take them, it was very important. Interpersonal linkages then, who do you know? Friends you have, people that you can connect with that can get you what you want, that can do favors, that can provide something you can trade. These interpersonal linkages are very important. Don't overlook these. Who do you know? What can they do for you in whatever situation? And I just love that line from Breaking Bad, from Saul. I know a guy who knows a guy. These are the interpersonal linkages. Paul Revere had these. And there's a wonderful section that Malcolm Gladwell writes about in his book, The Tipping Point, about how Paul Revere knew people. And he knew people that knew people. And when he went on his midnight ride to let people know the British were coming, it was very effective. The word got spread and the army showed up the next day. Interesting side of the story was Revere went up one side of the river to all the farms and communities. Another fellow rode up the other side of the river from Boston to all the farms and communities. He didn't know as many people. He didn't have the connections that Revere had. He wasn't a people person. And the next day when the people showed up to resist the British, 4 times as many showed up from Revere's side of the river as did from the other. These interpersonal linkages are key, and there are certain people, they're known as connectors, who know other people. And if you can make friends with these people, develop that relationship, they will bail you out one day. They will come to your rescue in a situation. Communication skills, another power currency. Can you write a good report? Do you know how to argue? Have you ever taken a debate class? I recommend everybody should take a debate class while you're in college. You know, you're in an online program here, but what community college is close to you? Maybe they have a debate team, and if you could just get in on that debate class and take it and learn how to debate, this will gain you much as a very powerful skill, because it translates into writing, it translates into just talking and negotiating with people. It's not always up in front of a lectern with the microphone and people watching. You just learn the rudimentary skills there. But you add that interpersonal flair that you've got in working with people, and it can be very powerful. And think of a person that organizes a group of employees at work that doesn't like what a certain manager is doing, and they can get with and talk to 10 or 12 people who all agree this person needs to go. And as a group, he can represent that group to a boss higher up over their head and lobby for that person to be transferred, demoted, or fired, or whatever, based on whatever they're doing wrong that's hurting the company. All through communication skills, even though that boss could fire 1 or 2 people if they realize they're trying to get me fired. I hate to talk like this is very competitive conflict, but sometimes you have to do that. Communication skills give you the power you need in such situations. Your expertise, I think this is one you may be a lot more familiar with. You know how to use the software. Other people depend on you. They send you emails, they stop by your desk. How do I do this? You've got the expertise. You've got the expertise with fixing things. I have a good friend I talk about now and then in my lectures. He's a bona fide genius. I know his IQ is way up there in that 3rd standard deviation, maybe higher. And but he's very uneducated in one sense. 2 years of DeVry Tech to learn how to fix electronic stuff. Well, he worked his way up to the lead tech at Motorola, fixing $1 million machines that made chips. Now he's the engineer for a television station, keeping the HD digital transmitting equipment working. And this guy has expertise in repairing things. He can repair almost anything. And that has kept him working his whole career, and it's kept him in his job when other people don't like him, because they felt threatened by his intelligence. And he's not an ambitious person, he's just happy to do his job. He has a lot of interpersonal linkages, but he has that expertise, and it has just kept him working when people wanted him gone, because people recognize the expertise, and it gave him power. Ouch, something fell on me, but we'll just keep going. All right, now assessing relational power, there's a section in the book I think is good here. Some principles here I think are important. Number one, that everybody firmly believes the other person has more power. This is what the researchers are finding. You know there's power differences between you, but you figure the other person has more power. You don't know what's in your wallet. You don't know what currencies you have there, and you think the other person has more than they do. You know, it's a human tendency, I think, for people to inflate their importance, inflate their power, to do it as a show, to puff up their feathers and appear bigger than they are to the other bird. And but we do that, and we believe it, we buy into it, and we believe that other people have more power than they do. And that's why conflict can escalate, because we try to inflate ourselves, and you get this bad dynamic going and it's because people are paranoid in a sense. I don't know that that's the word. So our feelings about power, they're not an accurate guide to how things really are. Perceptions are the key here. And if you think somebody has more power than they really do, you're going to probably back down for them or not be as aggressive in a conflict as you could. And when I say aggressive and talk competitive conflict, it's coming from the perspective that sometimes you need to stand up for yourself and be competitive to get the other person to take you seriously, to know that you're not backing down, and they better work with you to resolve this, or things could escalate and not turn out the way they would like. So perceptions are a key here about assessing relational power. And just recognize other people probably don't have as much power currency as they think, and you probably have more power currencies than you think. And I'd like you to start talking about power in those terms. Power currencies, not necessarily power, because that's too ambiguous. There are different kinds of power, and they're really well described by that RICE acronym and those 4 currencies: resource control, interpersonal linkages, communication skills, and expertise. Okay, people, and there's a nice section in the book, I'd like you to read this. People have power in an organization when you're in a position to deal with problems, you've got control over resources, you can bring problems and resources together, you are centrally connected in the workflow, you are not easily replaced, and you've successfully used your power in the past. I used to have a powerful position in another university, at Indiana University. I was a department chair, and I had been there many years. I knew everybody in the school. I knew how to deal with problems. I could get on the phone and call people and could work with them, because I always try to be nice to everybody and appreciate everybody that I work with. I had control over some resources, not too much, but I knew how to get problems and resources together for people, especially for students and other faculty. I was centrally connected into the workflow of the university, and within our department everything flowed through my office. I left the university. I was probably not easily replaced, but I think we tend to we're overconfident in that ability in ourselves. I was replaced when I left, and yeah, things might have been tough for a few colleagues for a little while, but they figured it out. Other people stepped into the position. They were very smart. I think we are often more easily replaced than we think, or we think the place will die without us, but it doesn't. But at the same time, it does cause a problem, and some bosses did not want me to leave when I did, and others did. We had a conflict which is reason I started looking for work. And yeah, I'd successfully used power there in the past, specifically linkages and information, just knowing what to do, when, and who to call, and how to solve problems. And that brings you a lot of power currency that you may not realize is there. But the longer you're someplace and the more you understand about how things work, the more that is. You could look at a mom in a family, positioned to deal with problems. They've got control over the checkbook. They know how to get the problems and resources together. They are centrally connected, not easily replaced, no. And successful in the past, yeah. So when my children, who are both adults, consider mom and consider mom's power or dad's power in a family, these are some of the things that you can look at. Recognize this about yourself within the organization also, and maybe go down this list. I think there's a few more things on that list in the textbook. Okay, issues about who has power are interesting. We've talked about power currencies, and really the more power currencies you have, you've got power. We've talked about those three clusters of power. Perceptions are the key. I think we're just reviewing here. This is an interesting idea. There's no single criterion for figuring out who has power. And I think really looking at those power currencies, expanding those where you have them is good. And it's interesting, people who look powerful are often less powerful. Our perceptions can be way off. We just talked about it. Passive-aggressive behaviors are a way to gain power when you feel you're in a low power position. I don't like this as a tactic or a strategy. Just not showing up for things, double booking yourself on purpose. There's a list of behaviors about this in the textbook that you should take note of. And note when people are doing this with you, within the family, within an organization, people will be passive aggressive. They just don't do what they might have said they were going to do, or what they were supposed to do. Then they have an excuse for not doing it. And I remember a kid at school once. I was walking by and I overheard a conversation with some other students. I was a grad student at the time, so they talked around me about other people. And he said he was at work, and the boss told him to go in and mop up the bathrooms and mop up the hallway. And he said, I just went in, I sat down in a stall in the bathroom, and I stayed there an hour, and I didn't do anything. He really resented his job. He didn't like the way the boss was treating him, and he was being passive aggressive to try to hurt the company. And in his own mind, building up his own power. The boss needs to get a job done. I imagine he lost his job before long, and he probably was fairly easily replaced in that situation. But even then, employers don't like to replace people because it's expensive to hire a new person. It's expensive to go through the interview process, to pick somebody out and to make the hire, to train them. And so, yeah, the easily replaced thing, there's two sides to that coin. Okay, power balancing is where we're headed at this chapter. Recognize that asymmetries do exist. People do have different levels of power. We have different power currencies. We have different amounts of those power currencies. So those power asymmetries do exist. Don't deny them. Don't think that they're not important. The other person doesn't have as much power as you think, and you've got more power than you know, or more power currency. High power people, we tend to think high power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We've got these trite little sayings that, there's probably some truth in them in some places and sometimes, but having a lot of power currency doesn't necessarily corrupt people. I think a sociopathic tendency tends to lead to that, and sociopaths tend to aim their lives at positions of high power and do whatever it takes to get there. And perhaps that's where that saying came from. Low power, I think, and the book says, it can corrupt people also. Is losing a good way to build character? No, I don't think so. And like the book says, it builds up resentment and anger. And that is not leading to a good situation. So keep these things in mind. Having power currency isn't a bad thing. Try not to let it corrupt you. Are you corruptible? Low power, you have more currency than you know. Recognize that. But it's not a place where you want to live and let people beat on you and run over you and say, this is good for my soul. It keeps me humble. you're going to end up resenting that and being angry about it at some point. We want to go towards integrative power, and that's where we are sharing our power currencies and working with other people through dialogue, and just talking and getting things on the table and talking about these conflicts as they have that triggering event and we get involved in them. If you are a person with a lot of power currency, using restraint. If you're the boss, don't get in the habit of threatening people that you're going to fire them all the time. It's better to work out problems and keep employees and your work team satisfied and happy. Much better production out of people, a lot less absenteeism going on. So restrain yourself in that power. Let people know that you're not going to use your power. It's okay if they talk around you. It's okay for them to share problems that are going on in the workplace with you or within the family. How many of you grew up with a dad you're afraid of because he loses it? And in that attempt to gain power raises the voice. That's not a power currency. Raising your voice and trying to manipulate people emotionally only works when people are willing to give you that advantage. But with a lot of people it just doesn't work, but they use it anyway. Interdependence. Focusing on interdependence. We need one another. I need you as a student. I need students to take my classes. The college needs students. And at some level, most professors recognize that and recognize that our success depends on your success as a student. At work, your boss needs you. You're good at your job, and it'll be hard to replace you, and they might go through 2 other people that can't handle the job before they get somebody that can, and it will cost the company a lot of money. The boss knows that, and you should know it too. That's where the interdependence and putting that on the table. I love this idea of the power of calm persistence, and this is a way to increase the currencies you have. In a way, using that money metaphor, it's a very high interest rate. To just be persistent, take your time, and the calmness, even if other people are getting upset, and insisting on your position, insisting on being heard, insisting that you have to work together to solve this, and standing by your guns there, but not getting upset about it, and letting time work its magic as people calm down later and think about things and realize that you're making sense. Staying engaged in a conflict helps you balance power as well. Just getting upset and leaving and not engaging the conflict, you're losing your power currency there. But staying engaged, building the interdependence that's connected to that, and empowering other people where you can, where you're the boss. Let's say, okay, it's not just restraint. I'm not going to threaten to fire you. But empowering the other person, asking them, how do you want to solve this problem? Asking them questions like that, engaging them in the process, actually adds to their power currencies. As you realize they do have interpersonal linkages, they do have expertise that is valuable here, and let the other person know that you're recognizing that within them, because they may not recognize it within themselves. Remember, out there in the world now, after having a class like this and taking it seriously, you are going to be the ones who understand what's going on in conflict. Other people will be bumbling around with their 8-year-old, 9-year-old strategies of dealing with conflict, but you're going to be the mature one now, or at least you can be, and help people resolve things and get things solved. I think that brings us to about the end. Okay, just a few more things here. The idea of metacommunication. The book brings it up here. I think this is the most undervalued concept in the world of communication. Metacommunication, if you look it up on Google or a dictionary, it's just going to tell you it's reading between the lines, it's a message within a message. Yeah, that's sort of true, but that doesn't really get at what metacommunication is. People who understand metacommunication are the good communicators. They're the ones who advance in their life. They're the ones that don't screw it up when you talk to somebody, because they understand about meta messages. We send messages all the time without intending to. It just happens. And these meta messages, this meta communication channel, is largely nonverbal. It's not about what you're saying, but often how you say it sends a message. And these messages happen in two ways. And it's the second line here. We negotiate status non-verbally through meta messages, and we negotiate and maintain our relational depth through these meta messages non-verbally. Relational depth. How good of friends are we? How solid are you here at the company? What's the likelihood that you're going to get laid off, or you're the person that's never going to get laid off? How good of friends are we? How deep do romantic relationships go? And when somebody wants to go deeper in a romantic relationship, and they will send meta messages to that effect. And when somebody is just friends with you, but they're interested in romance, they will send you a meta message. A young man is living in our house, a friend of our son's that needed a place to stay, and he has a crush on this young woman at school here at NAU, and he at one event they had, he baked something and took yummy things for everybody to eat in this campus organization he's in, and she wasn't there, and he was really upset that she wasn't there, because he hasn't told her that he's crazy about her yet, and she didn't get to eat any of those goodies, and he really wanted to impress her by how well he could cook. And the next day he's talking to her, and he said, I brought these last night. She says, oh, I wish I would have been there to have some. And so we're talking about that later, and he doesn't know how to read the meta messages yet. The young lady would like to be better friends with him, and I tried to help him see this, that actually she talks with him and interacts with him, and she made a point of saying, oh, I'm sorry, I missed your goodies, I really wanted to eat some. He wants to ask her out on a date, but he's afraid to. And so I told him, no, I think she'll probably go out with you. She's sending you meta messages that she's open to a little bit deeper friendship. Who knows where it leads? But she's open to being better friends with him. She doesn't dislike him. She doesn't think he's creepy. And she's willing to say things that indicate that she's interested in a deeper friendship. You know, and too many people think with the meta message, when I ask her for a date, it means I want to marry her, and she's going to reject me. And young men especially really struggle with this. I'm digressing away from conflict a little bit, but the point is we communicate so much non-verbally through the meta messages. We read between the lines, and our actions speak very loudly. You just being there, you being the person that stays after to help close up at the end of the day at work, the boss notices that. It sends a meta message about commitment. That's relational depth. It also sends a meta message to the boss that you're interested in a promotion because you're willing to take that extra step. And the boss notices that. You don't need to say a word. You don't need to go tell the boss, I'm gunning for a promotion, and so I'm going to do a little extra work and work a little bit harder so you notice it. Although sometimes you need to make sure the boss is noticing, but typically we do. People negotiate status through meta messages, just in conflict situations especially, just by not talking to somebody. You're sending the message that I don't have to talk to you. I've got power here, and I don't need to respond to your critique or your criticism. I don't need to respond to the problem. We're sending meta messages. Learn how to read these. Be aware of them. Once you catch on to this concept, you will see meta messages everywhere, and you will start learning how to communicate through these more effectively, and your communication skills will take an exponential jump forward. Okay, finally at the end of the chapter, there's a very nice section about things to say, how to approach conversations or problems when you are a person with low power, or you don't feel like you have a lot of power currency. And look that over and try to grasp the heart of what they're saying there. It's difficult when the situations don't apply to you directly, but try to capture the heart of what they're doing. Okay, finally, what this chapter is trying to do is help you maximize your integrative power, integrate with people, work with people, and oh, sorry about the typo there on the slide, work with people and recognize you've got more power currency than you realize in your wallet, and they probably have less, but together you can solve all kinds of problems together. You can resolve conflicts working together, and helping people see that you have power together helps you collaborate, and that's the goal. That's the goal of this class. That's the goal of your getting better at conflict efforts, is to learn how to collaborate with people, to co-labor with them, to work together to resolve conflicts, to solve problems at work and at home. Okay, thanks a lot for watching and listening. This went a little longer than I'm planning, but I really like this topic and enjoy talking about it, and I know this is a topic that can enhance your relationships and your work experience probably more than any other communication class we teach here at the university. Thanks a lot. You have a great day.